Hi, Tribe. Good afternoon. Hope you guys had a fabulous Christmas and a great New Year. We're off to a good start here. Today we have Amy talking to us about disaster preparedness. Hi, Amy.
Hello.
How are you today?
I'm doing quite well. I'm very excited to be here.
Good. I'm so happy to hear from you. I know your passion for this is so great and intense. So I'm glad that you contacted me about your passion for the disaster preparedness program and offered to connect with us. So how long have you been a nurse?
I've been a nurse for 13 years.
Okay, great. We've been a nurse the same amount of time. That's great. So what led you to the FEMA training?
Well, I didn't even know this was a thing until one day my director called me on the phone and said, "Hey, I went to this FEMA disaster preparedness training, and I think it would be really up your alley." And I asked a whole bunch of questions because it's almost too good to be true.
Okay.
And then I went and I loved it and realized that it, is what it says it is, and led me to want to share it with the group.
That's awesome. So tell us a little bit about it and what exactly the FEMA program is.
So it's a little complicated because it's bureaucracy in the government, and that's just how it is. But I guess the United States Department of Homeland Security has under it FEMA, who has a training center in Anniston, Alabama, called the Center for Disaster Preparedness. And it's funded by grants, taxpayer dollars, however these type of programs get funded. And the purpose of it is to prepare, they have lots of classes. Anyone from police to hazmat responders to firefighters to paramedics to EMTs to administrators in hospitals to nurses, anyone who could possibly be involved in a mass casualty incident or a natural disaster can sign up for these courses, and they're free. I mean, they're not free because we pay taxes, but like they're free to the person taking it. And you go and you spend however many days in Anniston, Alabama, and do these training courses. So it's a pretty amazing opportunity. Even the airfare was paid for, and accommodations, and the food, which I'm happy to tell you more about because those were the parts that I didn't quite
Go
ahead. So they make your own travel, or they make the travel arrangements for you. So I left the airport in the town that I live in and arrived in Atlanta, and then took a bus to Anniston, Alabama. They arranged it all. I just had to show up after I gave my information and signed up via the website. And then you stay in barracks that they're trying very hard to renovate.
Okay.
I have a picture of where I stayed. You can show that if you like.
Okay, I will.
The hardest part for me, being a grown woman and far out from college, was that you had to share a bathroom with someone. It was the hardest part. But you get your own bed and your own room that has a television, and sure, it looks like military barracks and it's not the most comfortable bed in the world, but it's free, and it's not bad. And then you share a bathroom with a roommate that's on the other side. And then they have a cafeteria, which serves breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and you just go there and eat it. And if you're a vegetarian or have special dietary needs, they accommodate them. So you could go there and not spend a dime, or you could go off campus and take a shuttle bus to go out on the town, and then, buy your own pillow like I did, and, enjoy some of the local sites. And then you would spend that money, of course. But the biggest expense is if you work for an amazing company that approves this, you would get paid for your time, but it is it is 7 days. So you,
Okay.
well, this training course was 7 days. So you either take PTO, which is, a hunk of time to take PTO, or
Sure.
you work with your education team at the hospital you work with and see if you can just get paid education pay or whatever, whatever they decide for that. I was lucky enough that the hospital that I work for, which is Seattle Children's, they paid for regular time. So I didn't have to take any PTO.
So you were paid in full for your time spent at the FEMA training. That's amazing.
I mean, there's
That's
commitments
super.
because now I'm disaster trained and I have to respond to things and go to meetings, but that's the fun part, right?
Yes, yes. Now you have some sort of credential behind your name and you have to live up to it, right?
Yeah.
So tell us about the training. What exactly did you learn during your training?
So it's called the HERT training, Hospital Emergency Response Team Training. And if you really look at the website, there's 3 classes that this whole, 7 days entails. There's they call it the HERT B course, the HERT Train the Trainer course, and then the HERT ICE course. The regular HERT course was 3 days of talking about being a hospital first receiver in a mass casualty incident. So that can be anything like an earthquake or a hazardous chemical spill or a terrorist attack or an active shooter situation or a bomb or a nuclear reactor meltdown or any combination of the above. So you're a first receiver at the hospital. So you learn to set up a triage area and a containment area and a decontamination area outside of the hospital to protect, the people that are in the hospital. You learn how to triage. You learn how to decontaminate people based on different types of hazardous chemicals or exposure to hazardous substances. You learn how to properly utilize different levels of personal protective equipment, and then you get to try them out and exist in them for some periods of time.
Okay.
And that's pretty awesome. And then you get to do this this train the trainer day where they teach you how to give basic introductory training to other people. You don't go through the whole thing, but it's basically here's a quick highlight of everything. Please join our HERT team at the hospital, or, some people do community events to encourage that type of thing. This is the setup outside the hospital that you learn how to do. And that's the non-ambulatory decontamination area. And next to it is the ambulatory decontamination area. The people that teach this course are experts in the field. They're not teachers who have never seen this before. They're all people who have been first responders or first receivers in these type of incidents, either in the military or in their personal jobs or with the police force or FEMA themselves. They're very quality trainers. And then you do what they call is the ICE capstone event, which there are other classes going on at the same time. There are people who are learning to extricate people and EMS people who are taking them from the scene and doing their whole portion of the course. And when I say people, I mean these mannequins, which cost more than my house or my car that talk to you and they're dilate, they have pupils that dilate and they're very cool. Or they have actors that are amazing people and they have, moulage all over them and they're really, they play the part. So they have them, they extricate them from the situation and then they, that part of their course, they drop them off at the hospital or people walk up to the hospital and they come into your HERT team's scenario and you go for an entire day of role-playing this scenario and rotating through the different stations and learning from this. And then they go from the pre-hospital area into the hospital, and that's where another course called the HCL course takes over, and they do emergency medicine, and these actors or mannequins get admitted to the hospital or go through the emergency department or get discharged. It's a whole event that includes hundreds of people, and it's quite a thing to see. And then they do a wrap-up session and give you highlights of what you did well, what your teams could have done better, and resources to go home and use this stuff with your hospital and set up your own HURT team or improve your own HURT team.
That's awesome. So you mentioned that sometimes the FEMA will actually come to your facility. How many people have to be trained, FEMA trained, in order for them to actually come to you?
I'm not sure. They said in the class that if your institution already has a hospital emergency response team set up and they have all of this equipment, and you've gone through this training facility, you can request that they come to your facility. I don't know if there's a minimum number of people, but one would assume that you would have to have the capacity of your facility able to run these drills. So I don't think it's you have to be a this many people response team that's trained, but you have to be able to commit the resources of the hospital to run these drills is more criteria.
That's really interesting. Hi, Tara. Thanks for joining us. Hey, guys. So do you have any questions for Amy about the disaster preparedness program? For some of you that have just joined a little bit later, it is a free program. They pay for you to get out there. They pay for your lodging. They pay for your food. I put the link in the comments there so you can check it out. What else do you have to tell us about it, Amy?
Some of the funnest parts, other than, professional development and learning, were the sorry about that. There's an alert on my phone telling me that I'm here. Were the interactions that I had with the other classmates, the friendships that I made, the networking that happened, and also going out on the town and having fun with the other classes. I met people that were doing Cobra Row, which is this super intense training for people who are on hazmat teams for the police, and everyone was super nice, and we just had a really great time. We did a little bit of exploring. There's not a whole lot to do in Anniston, Alabama. I sent Chelsea a picture of the world's largest office chair, which if you Google Anniston, Alabama, that's the other thing other than this FEMA training site that you can go see. So we went and saw it. It was quite large and impressive. They have some cool bars, and at the end of the week, our class and one of the instructors had a hootenanny. I was educated in the fact that hootenanny is quite different than a hoedown or a party. There are certain criteria that need to be met. There's a bar on site, and that's where we had it. It was a really enjoyable time.
For some reason, the office chair is refusing to load. It doesn't want us to see it for some reason. I don't know what that's about, but sorry, guys. I'll post the office chair in the comments for all to see.
I tried to climb it. It didn't work very well. It's too large to climb, and they don't really have footholds, but it is a sight to be seen.
That's awesome. I did share the website briefly, as well as the link below. Anything else you want to tell us about? Anything that you absolutely hated about the time that you spent in Alabama, the week that you spent?
Well, Alabama is very humid, and plan your going there accordingly. I could not have imagined doing this in the dead of summer. So you're in full PPE gear, and it's humid and 98 degrees, and I'm quite sure there are creatures that I don't want to know about that would have been there. So they do it all through the winter too. So I went in November. It was lovely.
Yeah.
So there was a question that I saw in the comments beforehand that talked about prerequisites and how it looked like there were prerequisite courses for this. When you go to sign up, you do have to have an ID number, and then it says prerequisites and requirements, and it lists some links. They're not courses. They're like online modules that explain things like the incident command system structure, things you should know going into the course so you're not totally lost in the wind if you've never experienced any of this stuff before. So they're not really prerequisites. It's like kind of like pre-reading to do. The other thing is if you choose to go, one of the other hardest parts is figuring out how to work the faucet. And there is a picture that I sent about how to work the shower. There were plenty of people who, you know, their first day were a little grumpy because they couldn't figure out how to get the shower to work. So I shared the knowledge of how to make showers work at the FEMA training site.
That's hilarious. It's working now. I'll show you.
Yeah, it's such a problem that apparently there's a graphic that a lot of us that went from Seattle Children's didn't get this graphic or weren't able to figure it out. Oh, and there's the office chair. It is quite large.
That's fine. That's awesome. One other thing I did want to ask, do you feel like nurses need to have some sort of training prior to doing this? Is there you feel like a magic experience number or exposure before going?
That's a very good question. No, I think that they do a very good job of teaching you what you need to know. What is going to make it magical of an experience is to understand how you'll apply that knowledge at home. If you are someone who's a nurse in an emergency room, you know, understanding what your hospital's emergency response or mass casualty team is and what involvement you could or could not have with them, or but I think the other part of that is I went with a group of people from my hospital. You can do it on your own, but I think it would have been less valuable if I did not have a couple of people who were also, you know, training from my hospital with me.
Sure.
I think you could get a lot out of it as a new grad or a very experienced nurse. I think you might get some different things out of it, but there's nowhere that says you couldn't do it again. Take the course, you know.
That's good to know.
Once early in your life or early in your nursing career, and then again 15 years later, and you
for sure.
very different out of it.
Well, and I wonder too, as a new nurse, you're going to take away different things than you are as an experienced nurse.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And you also get to see that. I mean, I'm assuming that, you know, even as a new nurse, you would learn triage skills from the experienced seasoned people that are there. So it's kind of it's a lot like nursing school. If you are an active learner and you look for the opportunities, you're going to get a whole lot out of it. And if you just sit back and take the ride and expect things to come to you, yeah, maybe not so much. But there's definitely opportunity there.
That's awesome. Yeah. I did have one more question. Let me read my list of questions, make sure I'm not missing anything. Was there something specific that happened in your career that really fueled your desire to go? I know you said your management team brought it up. Was that the only reason that really you decided to go, or was something else there?
Well, I write a lot of I'm a nurse manager for a regional clinic, and I write a lot of the emergency preparedness plans for our clinic location. So, you know, learning about that is good. And, you know, the opportunity to practice. My husband's an EMS, and we talk about, you know, his response to calls. And I think it's just always been an interest of mine is, you know, when the worst possible thing imaginable happens in your community, how can you be worthwhile and not just an obstruction? And this definitely will teach you how to be worthwhile in a mass casualty or emergency disaster situation.
That's awesome. And aside from Good Samaritan law, does this cover you any more or give you any other sort of protection if you were to respond to a casualty outside of your nursing practice?
Not legally or officially, but I'll tell you, it'll probably keep you safe because
Yeah.
you'll have more situational awareness. And if you were to, so they do some other lectures, and I'm not sure, that it would be offered at every single one of these classes, but I attended an evening lecture series that was given by a tactical combat paramedic, and he talked about how to, what to do if you were ever in an active shooter situation. And a lot of that training was, your body language, how to call yourself out as a bystander, how to help people as a nurse in that situation without putting yourself in peril. And in the hurt lectures too, if you were a victim of one of these events, you would be much better prepared to keep yourself or your loved ones or people around you safe.
That's really interesting. I'm super interested. I'm going to go explore the FEMA website now and see what that looks like. Any viewers have any questions before we let Amy go about her day? Anyone have any questions before we head out? Thank you for giving us your time, Amy. And I'm excited to explore this a little bit more and see what they have to offer.
You're very welcome. And if there is questions for people who watch this on playback or whatever, hit Chelsea up and she'll let me know, and I'm happy to answer questions after this also.
Awesome. Yeah, you guys can just put them in the comments so we can see them. And then, Amy or I will address your question there. All right. Doesn't look like any more questions are coming through. Thank you so much for your time, Amy. Have an awesome day.
You too. Bye.
Bye.